Willkommen zurück auf dem Kanal. Welcome back to the channel. Ich bin Lang. I am Lang. And today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary. We're going to be talking about the European Day of Languages, which is a very important date in regards to languages, obviously. And it was the past 26th of September, so about a week ago. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the video.
Objective: promote language. European Language Day is all about promoting language, and this is because there are hundreds of languages spoken all around Europe. I mean, if we don't promote language, then how are we going to communicate with each other on a daily basis? Europe is really, really big if you haven't seen. Because I know there's some Americans out there who have never looked at a map before and still think that Europe is a country, but no, it has multiple countries within it, multiple languages spoken, multiple cultures. So European Language Day is all about promoting language learning and also our understanding of culture and other people, which is why it is very important.
Yeah, that's right. And experts, what they recommend is that people learned at least two foreign languages. And of these two foreign languages, one would normally have to be pretty closely related within the same language family, and the other one would normally have to be pretty distinct, so it would actually be a challenge for the learner to acquire. And so, for example, if I was a native speaker of Russian, the closely related language I could choose is maybe Ukrainian or Polish, because the three of them are Slavic languages. And as for the non-related language, the distinct one, I could choose maybe English or Chinese, Hindi, any language that isn't closely related to your native language. That's it.
Languages spoken in Europe. There are many languages that are now spoken in Europe but have descent from other places in the world. Specifically, Arabic is commonly spoken in Europe, as well as Turkish and Persian. And yes, there are a lot of countries that are in Europe that do recognize those as national languages. But as we know from geography, they do come from other places in the world, not just strictly Europe. And also, Europe, of course, holds languages that aren't just European. There are many immigrants from other countries around the world who bring their languages to Europe, not to mention continents that cross Europe and Asia.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that mobility and tourism have exponentially increased the number of languages spoken in different territories. For example, the United States of America is a clear example of the amount of languages and, in general, just linguistic diversity that there is over there because of the amount of immigrants and also tourists who visit the nation. And so, take New York City, for example, it's actually widely considered to be the city with the most linguistic diversity in the whole world. So that's saying something. And another example is here in Spain. Obviously, the dominant language is Spanish, but due to the vast amount of tourists that come to the nation and also immigrants, they largely contribute to language diversity, and obviously the amount of languages spoken greatly increases.
German is a leader language. If you didn't know, a ton of science, research, and philosophy is all done in German. German is a very important language because so much study that pertains to the modern world and our understanding of multiple fields of science is written in German. And also, Germany is kind of like a hub for immigration. And so a ton of people go to Germany and have to learn German in order to survive. However, an important note is that in Germany specifically, English is really, really, really common. There's people who can just get around with no German at all, but speak English. This is why some people think that English should be the second national language of Germany. But also, why German is still important is that German exists in other countries, albeit in different forms. There's Austria, there's Switzerland. I could go on, but there's just too many to name. My favorite personally being Liechtenstein.
Yeah, and regarding the point Dog raised a couple minutes ago on the amount of languages which are spoken in the European Union, This is actually not a very easy question to answer because language, of course, it's a very subjective term. Um, and a lot of languages, like for example, Luxembourgish, I could consider it as a language because I would I would think that it's sufficiently different from Standard German in order to be considered a separate language, but for other people, it may be considered as a dialect. So the line separating these two concepts is very thin and can often cause confusion and also controversy.
The oldest European language is Pi. Pi, if you didn't know, is a really good dish, and it's also where all modern European languages come from. It stands for Proto-Indo-European. So, of course, Proto-Indo-European, you get it. And basically, the theory is that all languages that are in Europe, or, of course, that belong to Europe, so French, German, Spanish, English, they all come from Proto-Indo-European. And how is this possible? They're so different, right? But this is because we can see so many cognates between words in Romance languages and Germanic languages. So I already know that, there's like a Proto-Germanic, a Proto-Romance, which is Latin. But the theory is that those also came from one unified language as well called Proto-Indo-European, and that it was potentially spoken by one group of people. So then why did it change? Why did it diverge off? Well, the Tower of Babel happened. And also, these groups of people who were once together through migration probably just, split off from each other. That's the leading theory. And of course, they're going to develop dialects. Think about it like this. Say that everyone died and you were to start humanity and you're a monolingual American. Would you go your life saying, I would have done that? Or would you have said, I would have done that? You would probably go with the second because it's just your natural way of speaking. But the thing is, that is not grammatically correct. So when you go on speaking, I would have and I'll or I'm gonna, that changes over time and that becomes ingrained in the language. That starts creating dialect differences. And when you have thousands and thousands of years to build off of, eventually it's going to look different. You can still kind of see the where things kind of diverge from each other in the phonetics and the grammar, but of course now things will be different.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And by the way, guys, if you are interested in Proto Indo European, if you're interested in knowing more and learning more about this language, we have a complete separate video about it. So make sure to click the link down in the description below and it'll take you guys directly to the video. And I highly recommend you guys do that. But yeah, moving on, we have after the Proto-Indo-European language spread throughout Europe, ancient languages started to arise. So we're talking ancient history, of course. And the main ancient language, of course, apart from Greek, is Latin. And so Latin was spoken in the Roman Empire, which dominated in the Mediterranean zone, Mediterranean countries like Italy, Spain, and so on. But not only did it dominate in these areas, but it also dominated in Gaul, which is the current France, and also in the Holy Roman Empire, which is currently Central Europe. And from Latin, of course, we have the Romance languages that are widely spoken today, like Spanish, French, or Italian.
Pre-Roman languages. Before the Romans came and effed everything up and put alpha male men into a mindset of always having to think that they have to study Roman history, there were pre-Roman languages, these being Basque and Welsh. And the thing is, Welsh has existed for a very long time, and Welsh is still living today, but there aren't a lot of speakers, and there's still movements to keep it alive. So please, if you would like to learn a language that's not as spoken, and you're relatively British, then you should learn Welsh. Basque, on the other hand, is a freaking enigma and was probably sent here by aliens because Basque has no relation to any other language that exists in the world, period. It's what's called a language isolate. And so Basque is relatively hard to learn, actually, like pretty hard to learn, but people can manage it. And basically, what this is to say is that not all languages in Europe do come from pi. So I lied. But it is hard to say if Basque is native to Europe. So that wouldn't really break the assumption that pi is already asserting that in the languages that exist in Europe, all languages that exist in Europe that, are from Europe come from Proto-Indo-European. Because simply, we don't know where Basque comes from. We don't know if Basque originates from another continent, another country, another planet. We currently don't know. So we need leading linguists like you, dear viewers, to try and figure out this stuff for us.
Yeah, and so now I want to talk about a very important topic, which is linguistic diversity. Sadly, due to globalization, minority languages such as Navajo, Crimean Tatar, and Nalu are slowly but surely fading. And we think this is not positive because linguistic diversity, like languages are part of the culture, and when languages start to die, start to be extinct, the culture also in some way or form dies as well and takes the language with it. And so I feel like we should be encouraging these speakers to talk about their language, to express to the world how important their languages are because it's part of their heritage and part of their culture. And so we, as people who obviously don't speak those languages, we should start to not learn, but maybe be more conscious about these languages and how its extinction could affect us in the future.
Language biography. This is the amount of language that a person has had contact with in other languages, even just phrases. This means that you probably have a really big linguistic biography. And the whole goal is that we can expand our linguistic biography to, improve ourselves and improve how much we know about the world. Because even if you know just phrases, that can change everything.
And also, one of the most common misconceptions people have about language related content is that bilingualism is negative. And it's actually been proven quite the contrary. It's actually quite positive for a child to grow up in a bilingual atmosphere because bilingualism is actually not negative. The only negative part about being bilingual is that the child is going to start to speak in the languages a little bit later than usual. But as trilingual, self considered trilingual, obviously I speak Spanish, French, and English. I have no problem communicating in any of the languages, and I feel like it's not a disadvantage, but it's actually a really, really, really important trait that will obviously help me in the future with my professional career.
Speaking languages improves cognitive functions. Now, here, I'm just going to say it. When we polyglots, gigachads, terachads, freaking like gigamales over here get asked if learning foreign languages make you smarter, of course we say no because that's not the point of language learning. But at the end of the day, yes. I mean, I'm still stupid and I speak every language in the world. But language will make you smarter. Maybe not in the way that you think, but language will inherently make you able to recognize more patterns than you otherwise would have, and also be more intuitive in conversations. When you're speaking with someone, you, of course, need to be able to listen to them and understand them. And so then doing that in a second language is even harder as well, especially if the grammar in that language is different and the vocabulary in that language is different. It's testing your skills that you have in your native language all over again. It's testing if you can understand the person, you can understand that person's intonation, that person's accent, if you can understand the point of the sentence and the little nuances. Because when it comes to language, it's not about just the base words. Words hold idiomatic meanings, like I'm over the moon. you wouldn't be able to get the meaning of that phrase if you know, don't know the meaning of the phrase, because you can't just get it from the words. Nothing from that sentence, I am over the moon, tells you what that phrase actually means. You have to just know what it means. You have to know what the idiomatic expression is referring to. And so language holds a lot of that. So when you're able to recognize that in multiple languages, because multiple languages have different idiomatic expressions that just wouldn't work in other languages, then you're able to recognize certain patterns and know how people are talking and trying to convey to you, which is really fascinating. And also, which is probably the biggest kicker, is that it is proven that language kind of prevents dementia. If you are bilingual, then it's likely that you have at least a 5 year kind of, like a 5 year, I don't know how to put this. So if you, being bilingual basically will off put dementia for at least 5 years if you are prone to any dementia symptoms. But there does need to be further research done to this. But we know that at least that bilingualism, knowing multiple languages, can rid off dementia. We know that that is indeed true. And so this shows that language learning is very important because it can not only help your brain, but it just helps, who you are socially. And it helps you help other people. And if you want, you can go on academic endeavors with all the knowledge that you know.
Yeah. And so the European scale to measure your people's language disabilities is the CEFR, which stands for Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And you've surely heard about it sometime. For example, Cambridge exams for English, obviously, are associated with this institution. And it's very important to take it into account because it's one of the most official ways to measure your language abilities. And lastly, what I wanted to talk about is the European Union Language Academy, which is a website you can find on the internet, which is 100% free. It will not cost you any money. And what you can do with this app, especially if you're European, is very beneficial because what you can do is choose any of the official European Union languages and learn it for free in a special methodic way. And it's actually targeted to Erasmus students or future Erasmus students who want to learn the local language of the country they want to visit. So, for example, if I wanted to go to Netherlands, I could use the European Union Language Academy online to learn Dutch and be able to communicate with people while I'm there. So, yeah, it's very useful, and I highly recommend you guys use it if you're European and want to go on an Erasmus. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for watching Langdog. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was really fun to make, and I hope you had a great European Language Day. And if you didn't know there was one, now you know, and hopefully you can celebrate next year with us.
Adios. Tschüss. Salut.
Salut.